Well, hey there, everybody. Brian Goulet here of GouletPens.com, here for episode number 230 of Goulet Q&A. 230. That sounds like a lot. Sounds like more than 229 for some reason. I don't know why. Probably because it's one more. But anyway, in this episode, I'm going to talk about fountain pen day, nib repair, and the greatest of all time ink and pens of Goulet pens in our history. So should be a nice fun one for you. To catch you up on what I've been up to in the last week, Halloween's coming up. There's all kinds of like fall festivals and things like that. So we took our kids to one last Friday, and it was a lot of fun. They had a blast. It was just a little local thing. It wasn't anything, really, really fancy, but there were just a lot of local people there, and local food truck vendors and stuff like that. And it was just really cool, especially after just being so busy and caught up in our work and all that, to just go do something completely not just sitting at home doing family stuff, cleaning the house, all that, but to actually get out of the house and do some family fun things. It was really nice for us, and our kids had an absolute blast. That was the last evening before I kicked off my 5-day fasting mimicking diet regimen. So this is a company called Prolon that is doing this thing. I'm not a sponsor or anything like that. I'm just going to drink some water out of their bottle. But it was recommended to me by my nutritionist as a way to maybe help some of the insulin issues I've had and some of my weight issues and things like that. So I'm trying to do it to jumpstart my health back in jumpstart my body back into shape. So it's been working well so far. I'm feeling okay. I'm on day 5 right now. As I'm recording this, I'm on day 5 of my fast. And I'm eating little tiny bits of food. I have this little package here. It's here's my little box of food for the day. And it's all tiny little bits of food. Here's my dinner tonight. This is my dinner. I get to add water to this, and it makes a little minestrone soup, and that's my dinner. But I'm gonna feel so much better once I have good food in my belly. But it's okay. It's really been pretty good. So anyway, that's kind of what I've been up to, trying to just function normally while on this diet thing. So pen-wise, let's talk about what we've got going on. There's a lot of stuff coming in these days. I'll be completely honest with you. There's a lot even for me to keep up with. Some of it we've been talking about for months and maybe most of the year, and now it's starting to kind of come to fruition. It's really piling on. So if you guys are feeling like it's a lot, I got you, because we've been planning for it for a while. One of the things we have is a Lamy Vista. Ooh, that glare is pretty bad. Lamy Vista gift set. So it comes with a Lamy Vista, and you can get it converter. So it's got a Z28 converter and one of every color of their regularly offered ink cartridges. So a nice little variety pack. Packaging is really nice. Because it's a limited packaging kind of thing, we only have a limited number of them, so we got them for the holidays. I don't know if it's going to make it to the holidays. We'll see. But anyway, we've got them now, so you can check that out. What else we got? Ink sample package sets are back. So that's something that we're trying to build the functionality back into our site. So our developers are working hard on that. We're working on the rest of package sets, which, it's more of a challenge, but at least we have ink sample package sets back in the meantime, so that's pretty cool. We have Diatramentis Document Urban Gray, if that's anything that you're interested in. We have that now. I don't have it to show you, but it's on the site. And then we got Franklin Christoph pen cases. So I kind of announced a little while ago, maybe in Right Now or something, that we were going to have these. So I've been keeping an eye on this. Drew's a big fan of these cases, so it was really kind of cool. I met up with them in San Francisco. Saw them at DC and then in San Francisco when I went. Real nice people there, and so we were able to work that out. So if you're curious to see what it's like, they have a 2, a 3, and a 6 case. That's what we're starting out with. It's leather, smells like leather, feels like leather. And the cool thing about their cases that's kind of different than some of the other cases that we have, because we do have a fair number of pen cases these days. These ones have individual separations in here, and again, we haven't gotten our good camera back yet, so I can't show you in close detail what's going on here, but it's like an individual looping of a stretchy material that holds each pen in separation from all the others. And Drew's a big fan of that. Drew likes to have his pens clipped in there and have it be where they can't fall out, even if you have the lid open. So if you like that particular feature, you will like it. This is a Mont Blanc 149, just kind of stress test the size of it. It does fine. Here's this is what's called the Penvelope. That you may have heard of that around there. It's got a magnetic enclosure, the 6 one, and it's bad. It's not bad. This is $65 right here, so it's pretty reasonably priced, and the quality is really good. They look really nice. There we go. So you can either clip it in or clip it out. Either way you want to do it. I like mine more fast action. Maybe I'm a little more on the go, and I like to just be able to go and pull it out. So anyway, if that's anything you're interested in, we have that now. And what else we got? Three Oysters Navy came in. That was back ordered a little bit from our initial launch of Three Oysters, but now we got it. And then the Monograppa Shiny Lines Dove, which is a pen that we have as an exclusive, which I'm a huge fan of. This is my personal one. Took a fine nib for myself. So it's got the Dove. This is something that was used on the, oh my gosh, let me get you the formal name because I botched it on right now and I feel really bad. So let me see. Should have looked this up ahead of time. Tercio Millennio. So that was the pen that originally used this nib. It was replated. They found a small supply of them basically like underneath their factory in this like cave sort of thing. And so they had a limited supply of them. So they did it for us and they were able to engrave the center band to match the Dove on the nib. So really cool. Big fan of this pen. Nice hefty pen. It's got a lot of cool things going on with it. So we have that now. We launched that on Wednesday. So it's really cool. You can check that out. What else we got? Coming soon. Okay, so we got some cool stuff that's coming soon. You may have heard maybe about a little pen that we're coming out with Retro 51 called Cake versus Pie. We're super pumped about these pens. This is our first exclusive design with Retro 51. And we were like, you know, what better to do than the great debate of our office, which is better, cake or pie? I mean, this has been an ongoing running debate in our company for no less than 5 years, easily. I don't remember who originally came up with it. I want to say it was Drew. Maybe he'll correct me on that, but that sounds about right. But anyway, it's something that it's obviously not a deciding factor, but it is something we ask about in job interviews because we just are very passionate about it. You know, and of course, we have more pie lovers here than cake lovers, so if that tells you anything. I don't weigh in too heavily on that decision. But anyway, so we've got custom packaging here. This is prototype packaging. Our final one's a little shinier than this, but it's got all of the different cakes and pies that we have designed on the pens with the names as to what they are. And then we have the pens themselves, which are also fantastic. So we designed them and covered them with cakes and pies. Now there's a great debate going on our team about the substrate color. Is that going to be a factor in which pen sells better? Because I think everybody is saying that maybe the teal is a better color on the pie pen. I don't know. The dark blue, I could argue, is also a really nice color. But I like to say, because I'm very much team cake, and I like to say that if the pie happens to end up winning, I can blame it on the color and not really on the fact that people like pie more. So either way, I've got an out. I either have bragging rights or I have an excuse. Totally kidding, but just something fun. So the cool thing that we're doing about these pens, they're limited in production. I don't know if, I don't know all the history of Retro 51, but I don't know that there's ever been like a co-release of competing pens against each other. So we thought it was kind of fun, especially the whole cake versus pie, like the battle kind of thing that's going on with it. So we kind of thought it would be fun to number them and then see which pen sells out first, as maybe one more jab in the debate of which is better, cake or pie. So I'm rooting for Team Cake. I would love to know what team that you're on. And we put out this epic video, which you may or may not have seen. If you haven't seen it yet, you should definitely go see it because we have an epic food fight battle that happens. And that was a lot of fun. Mad props to Andy and a bunch of my team that was responsible for helping make that happen. It was definitely fun doing it together. We made a huge mess. We ruined a lot of cakes and pies, but it was all for the cause, right? Another cool thing that we've got going on is the Peniter pen filler. So this is something we alluded to way long ago, February, March times, when we had Dante Del Vecchio come and visit. He had a prototype of what this thing was to be, and now we have the final version that is going to be coming next week, and we're very excited about it. So I have one sample ahead of time here, so I can at least give you a preview, and we have pictures and stuff on our site. Comes in this neat little box, and it has on the side a hole, a couple of holes actually, that you can use to see if your pen is going to fit inside the holder, if you happen to be interested in that. So if you have a pen like, I don't know, this M400 tortoise, brown tortoise that we got a few of these in. They found a few of them over at our Pelican distributor. And if your pen will not fit within the smaller hole, or sorry, if it won't fit within the smaller hole, then it's big enough to be used in here. If it will fit in the bigger hole, then it's too big. Does that make sense? either way, it's got to fit in between those two things. So if I want to fill this thing, the way that it works, it's got, well, I'll go ahead and take it apart for you. I know it's taken me a while to get to the questions today. I'm just being leisurely. So it's a very simple device, really. It's just a couple of pieces. It's got this rubber piece, which is kind of stepped down, and it gets compressed as you screw this thing together. So what happens, instead of having this very specific concave shape that you've got to kind of press it and hold it into, you basically put the thing in there, you twist it down, it locks the pen into place, so you can literally just shake the thing. So you don't have to really worry about like shooting the thing off or dropping it or dripping it or anything like that. Then you can go and you can fill your pen like normal, and then you just turn it back up, unscrew it, release your pen, plug it up, and you're good to go. So really novel concept and very innovative. It's made of plastic, so it's very durable. You can fly with it because it's not more than the amount of ink that would get you in trouble. And so it's a very portable thing. You can fit it inside a good sized pen case. Let me see if it fits inside the Franklin Christoph. I can shove it in there. It's a little bit on the big side. So your smaller pen cases may not fit it in there, but I can fit it into the bigger one if I am bound and determined to do so. There you go. But honestly, I'm having a hard time getting it out now because my elastic is, there we go. Whoops. Okay, so maybe don't do that. So don't put inside a Franklin Christoph pen case. All right, so I don't know how we'll, because I'm really farting around with this forever. This is not entertaining. All right, so the reason we just cut that film is because I was struggling for a couple minutes to get it out. It is actually larger in diameter. I know a lot of people are going to compare this to the Visconti Traveling Inkwell. Huge disparity in price between these two, but the one thing that the Visconti one really does have over this is it's a little bit thinner, so it will fit a little easier into a pen case like such. This is something that you may want to just kind of keep around in your bag or something like that. So either way, lots of different good ways to do it, but this one is 25 bucks. So that is a pretty handy little tool. I think it's going to end up being incredibly popular, even if you just keep it on your desk. Just having a nice, easy way to fill your pen, especially if you have something like a vacuum filler or you have something that's got a really large nib and is hard to fill regularly, out of a bottle if the ink level gets low or something like that. I think that's going to be the way to go. So we got that coming next week, and we also have TWSBI Eco T in clear, which is going to be coming relatively soon. I don't have an exact shipping date for that yet, but excuse me, I know that one is relatively soon on the horizon. And we have a bunch more exclusives that we're working on and a bunch of other things that are going to launch. It's going to be a pretty wild rest of 2018. I hope you're ready. All right, let's get to the actual question, shall we? I have held you off long enough today. I do have some good ones, so I want to get to them. All right, pen and writing questions. Let's start off with Inkskine on Instagram. One's first impulse when receiving a new fountain pen is to ink it up immediately to test it out. Lamy is well known for recommending a flush first, which makes me wonder if there are general steps you should always follow of what to do first when you receive any new pen. So it's not just Lamy. Lamy definitely does that. So Lamy, they have a machine that actually tests every single pen that they send out with a little bit of their Lamy blue ink. So any Lamy pen, I'm going to pull out this Lamy pen from the set that I have here. Any Lamy pen that you get is going to have a little bit of blue on the feed because they test that ink and then they leave it in there to dry. So you just flush it out. It doesn't harm the pen or anything like that. It's just something unique they do. Maybe it's a way that they want you to see that they have tested it, but you can see it on there, and especially if you pull the nib off, you can see it. But if you flush a Lamy pen, then you know right away that that pen has been tested. If you flush the Lamy pen, then you know, oh gosh, I'm putting it back wrong. If you flush the Lamy pen, then you know that it has been inked, is what I'm saying. So that's kind of interesting. That's the way that they choose to do it. I don't know anybody else that leaves the ink up in the pen like that. That's something kind of unique to them. But still, Lamy is not the only pen company that recommends that you clean out a pen first. In fact, pretty much all of them do. Because, there's a lot of companies that test the pens. There's a lot of companies that will have, you know, maybe little bits of oil or machining residue or just various things that are good. It's just kind of a good common practice to flush a pen before inking it for the first time. Now that said, do I actually do that? Not often, because I am usually more in the camp of what you said, of being too excited to actually have the patience to do that. So, you know, if I'm at my desk, which is not that close to where I would be flushing a pen in my office, you know, I would probably just go for it. And then if I have any type of flow issues or anything like that, then I would be like, oh, okay, let me go flush this thing out. But yes, in general, it's a good idea for you to go ahead and do that. So it's a good general practice to do that. As far as you know, good practices when you first get a new pen. I think before we even get to the step where we're like flushing it out and cleaning it and inking it for the first time, I think it's always best to open up a pen and look at it in detail first. Make sure that it looks as it should, that everything functions as it should. You know, if you know to check the alignment on the feed and stuff like that, that's always a good idea. You know, check and make sure the filling mechanism works. As if it's a piston or vacuum or anything, make sure that it all works. Make sure it's not scratched or dented or damaged or in any way for any crazy reason. You know, they try to look over these things at the factory. We try to look over things when we can, but it's impossible to check everything that comes through. So, you know, in full detail. So you may notice something closer up with your thing that maybe somebody else had missed along the way. And I've seen some crazy things happen. Not often, but it does happen. So if there ever needs to be an exchange or return type situation that does happen, which is unfortunate, not always the case, but if that does happen, then you would at least then have not inked the pen and gotten it all dirty before you need to do the exchange. So that's always a handy thing to do. Yeah, that's really kind of about it. I mean, really, other than flushing it out, there's no like lubrication or no maintenance or any breaking in really of any kind. You pretty much get to ink it up and go at that point. So hope that helps you out. This next question is an interesting one from Books for Years on Instagram. Will Goulet pens be doing anything to celebrate Fountain Pen Day? So Fountain Pen Day, for those who are not familiar with it, maybe you're newer to the fountain pen hobby, you haven't really come across it yet. It's a kind of a community dubbed holiday. We just basically all kind of made it up, much like most holidays, I suppose, but it's not like a nationally recognized holiday or anything, but it's the first Friday in November. So this year it happens to fall on November 2nd. So that's coming up and not too far. What, a couple of weeks, right? So yeah, not even week and a half. Holy cow. No, a week, because this publishes on Friday. Wow, man, time is flying. Holy cow. So Fountain Pen Day is coming up on next Friday. It was founded, really spearheaded by Kerry Yeager, who is now, he actually works at Kenro, who's a distributor for Monograppa and Aurora and Esterbrook. He did the Fountain Pen Day thing before he started working at Kenro or anything. He was doing pen shows, and he was just a member of the community and really thought that there should be a Fountain Pen Day. So he's the guy behind it, really kind of championed that. And so he's behind all the Fountain Pen Day media and swag and all that. And it was just kind of created as a day to celebrate fountain pens and the people that use them. It wasn't really any more specific than that. There's no like march that we're trying to do to bring fountain pens back in schools or anything crazy, as nice as that would be. This is not really what the day is about. So it's really just to kind of celebrate it. And, you know, obviously a bunch of retailers like myself and all have gotten involved, and everybody's asking, you know, it started out, it was interesting. The first year, everybody's kind of like, yay, it's Fountain Pen Day. What are you going to do? What do we do with Fountain Pen Day? It's like, we need a day for fountain pens. And then it's kind of like most American holidays, I guess, it's kind of turned into an opportunity to shop. So obviously we as retailers are involved in that pretty heavily, but you know, there's hashtags like Fountain Pen Day or Fountain Pen Day 2018, whatever the year is, that happen. Lots of people share things about fountain pens and just use them and try to just really make the most of the day, kind of word of mouth kind of thing, just talk about fountain pens for that day. That's kind of a lot of the spirit behind it. Us specifically, we don't have like a major, you know, huge social media push or something going on for the day. We'll be participating in, you know, the online activities that'll be happening in the pen community for the day for sure. You know, we do have some sales going on. That is probably one of the best ways that we can serve you all in in the community for Fountain Pen Days, to get excited and get more pens in your hands, right? So we do have some sales and stuff. I'm not going to leak anything quite yet, but I will say that you should pay attention to us around Fountain Pen Day, maybe a couple days before, because we're going to be doing some interesting things. So, you know, I think you should maybe just kind of prepare yourself for that. So that is going to be pretty exciting, and it's just cool just to have a day that we can all, celebrate fountain pens. All right, next question is from Ken K on Facebook. How are flame pens like the Diplomat Traveller made? So this is interesting. This is a newer pen from Diplomat, and it's not unlike what you see on the Kaweco Lilliput Fire Blue or the Monograppa Blazer. That one's a little different because it's a little shinier. It's got a different coating on it. But the process, from what I understand, is relatively similar for all three of these pens, really. So I'll kind of talk about that. I don't know the exact proprietary process. I'm kind of guessing, and maybe just a little bit of what's been shared to me. I don't know all the exact procedures, but basically what happens is they take a pen that's made of steel. So it's got to be steel because that's what the metal that reacts to, well, a flame. So, the reason Traveller is called the flame is because an actual flame has been taken to that pen to give it kind of that variegated, heat map kind of look, is because it's literally a flame has been put to it. And the reason it looks different colors is because the flame is held longer in different spots. So each one is kind of unique and different. This is the case with all three of these pens. So that's kind of what you end up with, is you heat up the pen, it reacts with the steel, and then you end up with this colored steel, which is pretty interesting. And so it's not anything unlike like a creme brulee torch or something probably more aggressive than that, but it's something not that much, different from that. And you just kind of move it around, and I've never really tried doing anything like that myself. I don't have any raw steel pens that haven't been flamed at this point. But that would be an interesting thing to experience. I mean, I know people that do it. It's not anything that can't be done. So it's kind of interesting, but that's largely the process. So pretty cool. It's if the pen doesn't have any type of like finish on top of it, it's like a raw metal, and that can fade over time, especially if you're like me and you put your Kaweco Lilliput into a washing machine and then run it through the dryer. That can impact the finish a little bit. It muted it a tiny bit, but assuming you don't do that, it can get muted a little bit over time, just as exposure to air and your hand oils and stuff like that. Just to kind of be aware of that. But largely, that's the process, and that's what they're all about. All right, I got a troubleshooting question here. This is from Dylan Holloway on Twitter. Is there any way to repair a nib without having to replace it outright? I have a Noodler's Ahab that the nib is broken at the very tip, and I want to try to fix it myself before replacing it. Is there a way to replace it? Yes, most likely. I haven't seen your exact nib, so I don't know what broken at the tip necessarily means. When you say broken at the tip, I think like a piece has snapped off of it and it's like missing the tip of one of the tines or something like that. That's where my head goes. So that theoretically can be replaced. You can weld and you can do things to get that back there. But is it worth it to do that? Definitely not with an Ahab, because you can get a replacement nib for $6. And I can guarantee that any repair that you would do, pretty much at any level other than doing it yourself, is going to cost you more than $6. So, if a piece is actually broken off, there's no way that's going to be worth it. If it's just a matter of straightening it out, if it's been misaligned, or if you dropped it and it's been crunched or has something weird going on, yes, it can be straightened out. It's not super easy or straightforward to do. I did have a little bit of training with this from Richard Binder, and I've talked with a couple other nibmeisters about like basic nib repair and stuff like that. And I am by no means a nib repairman. I'm by no means a nibmeister. I've just had a little bit of training, so I know enough to be dangerous and to understand when I should, quit. And nib repair is one of those things that you got to kind of take your nib's life into your own hands. I mean, I'm assuming that it's pretty much already done for at that point, but if you have a particularly like precious or rare pen or something that's sentimental to you, I would not use that as the one to practice on for this type of thing. So it can sort of be done, depends what your situation is, but largely it's a matter of bending with your fingers and maybe using pliers. And oftentimes when you have repairs, it's impossible to get it to look brand new. You're going to see some warpage, you're going to see some things going on, because whenever you bend metal, it's really hard to get it to look like it hasn't been bent, especially on something as small as a nib. So I'll just kind of leave that out there. I've seen some of the nib work that like Mark Bacchus and Richard Binder and others have done, and it's very impressive, but it takes a lot of experience and really a lot of practice to be able to do it well. So my question, the question you asked is, can it be repaired? Yeah, it can, but is it worth it? Probably not for all but the most special of pens out there, especially because there's just not that many people that do it anymore. So to even find somebody is really difficult. So good luck to you. Get yourself a new $6 Ahab nib, and you'll be in really good shape to go there. And then if you want, you can practice on the one you have and mangle it all the heck, because you have the ability to do so. All right, I got a couple business questions here. This is first one is from Artie2610 on Instagram. Some time ago, you mentioned you were looking for a marketing director. Did you find the right person for the role? And what's your general process of hiring new people? And what do you look for in potential for Goulet team members? Okay, so I'm going to kind of split your question up a little bit here. Regarding the marketing director, I'm going to say we're nearly there. That's all I can say publicly, because whenever we have something that's like in process, it gets to a dicey situation to like announce things publicly. So I'll say we're nearly there. It's been a long process, and we're looking for a very special person. So it's taken a while. That's all I can say about that right at this moment. But we do have a very involved process. So that's why I took this question, really, so I can talk a little bit more about the process in general. So we have an involved process with hiring folks. And it varies a little bit depending on what the role is. If it's a much more straightforward role, it doesn't take as many steps because there are people that have similar qualifications at other companies and stuff, and it's a little easier to vet. If it's something that's a little more unique and a position that we've never had before, it's a position, it's something that we go through a couple extra steps. Fundamentally, we go slow. I find that small companies really generally just hire too fast. And we've been there. We've started this in our dining room. I can't tell you how many mistakes that we've made in our hiring process over the years. Not out of bad intentions, but just out of ignorance, because nobody, Rachel and I both have business degrees, and technically my degree's in residential property management, but whatever. We both had business training in school, if you will, and they really don't teach you how to hire people, and even if they did, it would be very academic, right? It's very, very different when you go to do it for yourself, right? Anybody who's ever managed or hired or fired, how difficult this process is. So it's kind of thing that is so easy to do too fast, especially if you're small, you're growing, you're feeling the pinch, you're tired, you're overworked, you just need some help. You need to get somebody in there, and you think, I'll just get this person, I like them, or they seem like they can do it, or you overlook some of their flaws. You bring them in, and guess what? All of the things that were red flags to you in the interview are now the things that annoy you the most every day and keep them from succeeding in your company. So shocker, right? And then you have to address all those things and work through it, and then there's feelings involved, and it gets complicated. So, we've done all those things. We've overlooked flaws. We've been too optimistic. We've taken too long to correct things. It's all stuff that pretty much every leader, every business owner goes through at some point, if not constantly. So for us, we try to go slow, mainly to slow ourselves down, and partly so that the candidates themselves can slow down and have time to really think through the position and really vet themselves, because the interview process, we look at it as they're vetting us as much as we're vetting them. At least that's how it should be. So our steps, roughly, I'll explain our process, is first step is we kind of, do a job posting, very descriptive kind of thing, and we gather resumes. We just try to get whoever might be interested in it, and we select relevant ones. Sometimes they're all over the map, and it's just their job is not relevant at all. They don't have the experience that we need, and they never should have applied in the first place. So we cut those out immediately. The next one is, for the ones that seem pretty relevant, we'll do a phone interview, and that's really just to kind of screen, get some initial contact with the individual, see, okay, is there any sort of, can they put two sentences together on the phone? Can they, are they lying through their teeth on their resume? Do they actually have some kind of experience? Do they really have any clue what they're talking about? And sometimes you'd be surprised what people do on the phone. But anyway, it's just to really kind of get that first impression and make that introduction, and then talk a little bit about kind of what we're looking for. And then once they're through that process, we'll bring somebody in for a quick in-person interview, maybe with HR and the hiring manager, whoever that is, the hiring manager being whatever team that person's going to join. Bring them in and just get a kind of a gut feel, just some basic stuff. Really in person, to spend some time together physically, because on the phone there's just a lot that can be missed. So being in person, you get to see them, make eye contact, and that kind of thing really matters for both parties. And then if if they go through that process, we're asking some slightly basic questions, but a little deeper. The next one is a longer in-person interview. So once they're through there, they'll come back, we'll give them a tour of the place, we'll explain a little bit more about the operation and how the team works, and then go deeper into some more technical aspects of the role, talk strategically about what it is we're trying to do. And then for some other positions, that might be enough for some positions, but some other ones like this marketing director we just did, we'll have a third interview, which is even deeper, because somebody like this marketing director, they're involved not just on the marketing side, the media team side of things, but they're going to sit on our senior leadership team, and they're going to be involved with every single leader. So there's a lot of different parts of the company that they might interact with. So we have to kind of know how they're going to work on a lot of different fronts. So they've got to meet more people and understand more context around the team, and they're thinking, not only tactically but also very strategically and all that. So that is kind of the final process, more or less. And you might interview 10 people on a normal interview and 20 on a very involved one. So it can get very, very involved. And we like to be very thorough, because you're really almost like kind of joining a family here. And we take that pretty seriously. So we want everybody to be feeling really good and be very thoroughly vetted. And no one's going to be perfect. Obviously, we know that's the case. But at least knowing what you're getting, and for the person, knowing what they're stepping into, because we're not perfect either as a company. That's really the name of the game, is kind of everybody being on the same page. And then we do use another thing. It's a personality. It's called a personality. It's not really a personality assessment. It's the DISC, D-I-S-C, DISC communication style assessment, if you will. So the D, I, S, and C stand for 4 different communication styles. So that's really what it's for, is just to understand, like, hey, is somebody really hard pressing, or are they going to be more laid back? Is somebody, going to be more of an extrovert or more of an introvert? And you get some basis of that. We don't use the profile just on its own as an assessment piece, but we use it as a conversation starter, because it's a self-assessment tool. So somebody takes it on their own and they bring it back, and we say, okay, does this represent you? Like, is what's being said on this page, does that really say you? And so they'll be like, oh, well, this part right here, like, this makes sense at home, but not really at work. I'm more professional here, and I'm more laid back over here. And so it just gives us a kind of a jumping off point for talking about that kind of stuff. And we find that's pretty helpful. But basically, we start out for the basic qualifications. Can the person actually do the role? Beyond that, it's really just fit, like culture fit. Is there alignment of values, and are they going to get along with those who are working with and get excited about our culture? That's a lot of it. So, it's not crazy for us to go through this whole process and have gone through maybe 100 different people in this process to hire for one position. That's not anything unusual at all. We're very picky. So hiring is one of the most important things that we can do, and we take it very seriously, and it's worth taking that time. For any of you small business owners out there, I recommend Dave Ramsey's got a pretty good roadmap. We've built off a lot of that. For that, his Entree Leadership book, he has a good format for hiring that we found very helpful, especially when we had around 12, 15 people. We had made so many mistakes that we were like, we got to figure some stuff out here. No, a lot of our early people are really great. I don't mean that to be... A lot of it was on the leadership side of just like being completely ignorant. We had to like do a lot of work to clean up our own mess of decisions that we made and things that we didn't communicate properly and things like that. That's what I mean. It's not like we had, people stealing from us left and right and anything like that. It was nothing too dramatic, but definitely a lot on the leadership side. It's a matter of like clarifying things properly when people are coming in and basically not hiring people that really don't belong here in the first place. I view that as a leadership thing. So anyway, hopefully that gives you a little bit of insight there. This next question is from CLB Droid on Twitter. Do you know what your number 1 top-selling pen and ink of all time are? So I couldn't quite calculate of all time. I was really curious about this question. I was like, I do get asked about this from time to time, but let me actually calculate it, because I have some new data and some interesting things. It's nice to take this point in time every now and then. I will say I couldn't calculate of all time for both pen and ink, especially because it gets a little complicated when we have things like package sets. We've changed over our website multiple times throughout our company, so the way that we pull reports and the way that product codes are structured and stuff like that, it gets really complicated to do that. And there's a lot of different ways you can slice this up too. Like, I'm sure whatever I tell you here, you're gonna be like, no, that's not how I would view top pen of all time. So I'm gonna use it based off of total sales, like not total revenue, I guess. Because I view you vote with your dollars. Yes, we're gonna sell more low dollar pens. And you could view, something like the Platinum Preppy or the Pilot Metropolitan or the Lamy Safari, you know, relatively lower price pen as being a top seller just surely by its number of pens. But I think the top selling pen would really have to be overall sales, because it's somewhat of a neutralizing factor, because you can have a whole lot of a really cheap pen that adds up to mean a lot, or you could have just a few really expensive pens, but the really expensive pens are less accessible, and if people don't feel they're worth it, they're not going to buy them. So it is somewhat of an equalizer. It's just what I choose to go with. It also was the easiest way for me to pull this information, so that's part of why I did it too. So anyway, you can complain all you want if you don't agree with the way that I'm pulling it here, but that's how I'm doing it. So that's what I did. I went completely off of total sales, not off of quantity. And I went as far back as I could. I don't even know, you know, so it's not going to be counting every single pen we've ever sold, but it's going to be pretty close. And there was definitely a clear winner on this one. So, you know, for the pen side of things, this may shock you, it may not, but the Pilot Vanishing Point has been our #1 selling pen, at least, you know, for, I think it was since 2016 is when I had this data. So the last several years, almost 3 years worth of data, which is a pretty solid amount. So that's maybe not quite half the length of time of our company from a data standpoint, but surely from a numbers standpoint, especially because we didn't sell pens in our first year at all, and we were ramping up. So the last 3 years is a much more meaningful amount of data than the early years. But yeah, Pilot Vanishing Point, there you go. When you add up all nib sizes and all colors and just put it into one model, when I pulled it and looked at it just purely off of one, you know, when I rolled up nib sizes and I just looked at one pen, the Lamy 2000 was actually the top because it's only one color. So it gets a little more conglomerated there because the Pilot Vanishing Point spreads out over a lot of different colors. So you can debate it however you want, but the Pilot Vanishing Point was our #1 pen model sold, at least since 2016. And then the #1 ink was actually surprising. This one I was able to go all the way back. The thing I will say about pulling the ink, it doesn't count ink samples or ink package sets. So it's a little different. So some of that might be skewed just a hair. And this one was pretty close too. But the #1 was actually Gerban Emerald of Chivor. Go figure. One of my favorite inks of all time. So I'm not exactly shocked. But I was a little bit surprised because we haven't had that ink since the very beginning. It's somewhat of a newer ink, but what can I say? It's a really popular. Not as popular in volume, but it's a more expensive bottle of ink. So that could be one up for debate. The most popular, very close second to that was Noodler's Black, the 3-ounce Noodler's Black. So there you go. And then I think Liberty's Elysium was not too far behind that too. So, you know, Noodler's making a strong play there, but Gerban bringing it in for the win. So I don't know if that surprises you or shocks you too much, but, you know, I'm big fans of all these things, so it's not a huge surprise. But yeah, so that's what I got. Hope that was interesting for you. All right, and I feel the need to like comment on the end of every single question that I do. I don't know why. I guess I've just done too many of these things. Personal question to finish it out. This is from Sumi Uni on Twitter. You're stuck on an island and have to choose between having an ugly pen with a beautiful ink or a beautiful pen with an ugly colored ink. Insert whatever color you dislike the most here. Which would you choose and why? I can't stand these hypotheticals. I don't know why I took this one, but I just felt that I should. It was asked in a different way, not just like, what's your desert island pen and ink? But the having to choose between was compelling enough for me to want to take this question. So good job on that, Somi. So which one would I choose? So I'm going to assume, I'm going to make an assumption based off this hypothetical. It's always funny when I get hypotheticals like this because Drew on our team loves to do hypotheticals and I love to debate and clarify the context around his hypotheticals to the point where I basically kill the joy out of doing it. It's to the point now where it's kind of a fun game for me to try to build off of Drew's hypothetical question to the point where it becomes so complex that it's unanswerable. But anyway, so for this one, I'm going to make an assumption here on this desert island where I'm trapped with a hypothetical pen and ink that there's an infinite supply of paper, because that would actually change the answer for me. If I didn't have paper, then I would care much less about the ink because all I would be doing is looking at the pen and maybe using the pen as a shovel or something, a pickaxe, or chop down a tree with it or something. I would care much less about the ink because it would be fairly useless to me. So I'm making an assumption that I have a good supply of paper that I don't have to worry about. With that in mind, then I would actually care more about the ink. I would choose the beautiful ink. and choose the slightly uglier pen. Because I don't know why. I think it's if I'm on an island, assuming that I'm like alone on this island, being stuck on it. You didn't give context exactly as to how many people were on this island. That's one of those things that I would clarify should Drew ask the question. You know, if I was on the island, assuming that I was by myself, I would get pretty lonely. I would probably want to write a lot, draw a lot, do things like that to communicate, write and read back my own stuff. I think in that context of having to physically write and actually read it back a lot, the ink would matter to me a little bit more. That's my logic. Does it make sense? I don't know, but that's just what came to mind. I just thought I'd take a fun question at the end of Q&A here. So that, I'm gonna lead right off of that to go into the question of the week, which is flipping it right back around you. Would you rather have an ugly pen and a beautiful ink, or a beautiful pen with ugly ink? So let's just forget the whole hypothetical of the island thing, but beautiful ink, ugly pen, beautiful ink. I mean, ugly ink, beautiful pen. Which do you care about more? Maybe you can look around at your desk and be like, oh, I do care a lot more about ink than pens. Or I care a lot more about pens than ink. Maybe you care about both. I don't know. But just answer that in the comments. It'd be some fun little banter. And then my writing prompt for you, for if you want to actually pick up your pen and write with it, with your beautiful pen and your ugly ink, use your writing prompt. Write about something that you hope to complete before 2018 is over. Maybe a goal, or maybe just a story or a thing you want to dream about for the rest of 2018. Go ahead and do that. Yeah, that's it for another Q&A. I hope you enjoyed this one. You can check out some of what we talked about here on Who's we? It's just me here. You can check out some of what I talked about here on gouletpens.com. Be sure to subscribe. If you haven't already, just click the subscribe button, and then you can get notifications for all the videos that we put out, because we're going to be putting out some good ones like the cake and pie. Anyway, I hope you have a great weekend, a great rest of your week. Thanks for watching, and right on.